Okay, so before I actually introduce you to our next formula, which is compound interest, I wanted to first show you, give you a model and an example of the differences between simple interest and compound interest. Okay, so this brings us to imaginary math land. And in imaginary math land, we have some of the best banks in the entire universe because this bank is offering us an interest rate of 100%. And if you remember from our previous video on calculating simple interest, you have to take all of your percentages and change them to decimals to use them in the formula. So the decimal value for this would be 1.0 or 1. So our interest rate is 1. Now here's what's going to happen. This money that we have gotten for our principal, after year 1, they're going to give us 100% of that. So if they give us 100%, that means they're giving us $200. And we're going to take these $200 and we are going to put them in the bank. All right, so we are going to put those $200 in the bank. And year 1 is officially over with. So now we're moving on to year 2. But guess what they're going to do in year 2? In year 2, they're going to take those same $200. And they're going to give us 100% of that. So they're going to give us another $200. And we're going to take those $200 and we are going to put them in the bank. All right, sorry, here we go. We're going to put those $200 that we just got in the bank, and year 2 is officially over with. And that's going to bring us to the last year that we're going to work on, which is year number 3. Now, guess what? In year number 3, they're going to give us another $200. And we're going to take these $200 and we are going, so there's my extra $200. And we're going to take these $200 and we're going to put them in the bank. All right, so let's see if you were paying attention. Now, we have done this for 3 years and we've gotten those $200. So, how much interest in money do we have in the bank? All right, if you guessed $600, then you would be correct. Here are the $600 that we earn in interest over those 3 years. So now the question is, how much total money that do we have? So we have these $600, but we also have our original $200. So if we take our $600 and then we add it to our $200, we have a total of $800. So our principal amount was the $200. Our interest, remember every year they were putting that money into the bank. We had $600 and we got a total of $800. And that's how simple interest works. Notice that my principal amount in this example never changed. It stayed that $200. And every time we use this formula, we were going off of that original $200. So now let's take a look at compound interest. And let's look at how compound interest is going to be a little bit different. All right, so we are going to still take our $200 and we are still in imaginary math land where we have the best interest rates in town, and our interest rate is still 100%. And again, we're still converting that to a decimal, which our interest rate would be 1.0. So this $200, we are going to take it, and just almost like it would happen with simple interest, we are going to get another $200. And we're going to take that money and we are going to put it in the bank. Okay, now here's the part that's different about compound interest. We're not only going to put the $200 that we earned, we are going to put everything in the bank. So how much money do we have in the bank right now? If you guessed $400, you are absolutely correct. And here's the difference with compound interest. For year 2, we now have $400 in the bank. And when we calculate our interest, and remember our interest rate was 100%, when we calculate our interest rate for for year number 2 at 100%, we're not getting $200 to put in the bank. We are going to get $400, another $400 to put in the bank. And we're going to take all of our money and we're going to put it into the bank. Here we go. Now how much money do we have in the bank? We have a total of $800 in the bank. If you guessed, you would be correct. There's our $800. Now we're going to get to do this one more time for year number 3. Our interest rate is still 100%. We're going to take all of this money that we earned in year number 3. And guess what's going to happen? We're going to get 100% of that. So now we have just gotten all of that money to put in the bank. So let's see what we end up with. It's 1, here we go, 2, 3, 400, 500. Uh-oh. There we go, in the bank, in the bank. Okay, now let's see how many of you were paying attention. How much money do we now have in the bank? If you get $1,600, then you would be correct. Now here's where compound interest is different than simple interest. Compound interest tells us about our total, and my total amount of money is my $1,600. But if you remember, my principal amount was $200. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate these $200 right over here in the corner, and I'm going to remember that that was my principal amount. I started with only these $200. So now let's think about this. If I have a total of $1,600, but I started with $200, how much interest did I earn? Now, because we're kind of going backwards to figure out how much was added on, I'm going to subtract. And if I take that $1,600 and I take away those $200, it leaves me with $1,400 that was given to me by the bank in interest. So now let's look at them side by side. Remember that when we did this example with simple interest, the only money that we got to put in the bank was the interest that we earned. And every time we did the calculation, we always went back to that same $200 that we had in our principal amount. We stayed with this $200. But when we did compound interest, every time we got interest, the amount that we were using to calculate changed because we had to put all of that money in the bank. And every year we had a new amount that we were using to calculate for interest. So that is the big difference between simple and compound interest. Now that we kind of have that understanding of what their differences are, from here we can go ahead and look at the formula to look more closely at how you actually calculate compound interest.